We're live. Okay, I'm here today with Jason from ESTEY'S Crime Maze, and Jason laid out a challenge to J EMBREE, also known as Panzerotti, to do a show, and then he even offered him a boxing match for charity, to which this person responded,
"Oh yeah, while I'm going through this, I got this freaking crazy guy out there, this ESTEY guy. He wants to debate me. Now you say he wants to box me. Now, I don't have 2 seconds to debate that guy over that nonsense he's spewing, and I don't believe he believes it, so I wouldn't waste my time and effort. Would like to box his ears, though. So I'll make a deal with you, ESTEY. If you can manage to get to, let's say, 2,500 subscribers. I mean, that shouldn't be too difficult to do for you. You hit 2,500 subscribers, and I'll be happy to box you on YouTube live. Box them ears right off the side of that bald head. And if you are able to beat me 5 3-minute rounds, if you're able to beat me, then I'll debate you. So there you go. All right, I'm not going to respond again. You get 2,500 subscribers, I'll box those ears. You beat me, I'll debate you. There's my terms.
I don't know. What would you say? It was more like a joke? Like he made a joke out of it?
Mocking. A joke, and
yeah,
I think he kind of mocked me because he mentioned he had to mention my bald head while J EMBREE wears a beanie on his head. Oh, God forbid. Anyway.
Tim Pool wannabe.
Exactly. And he doesn't fight. Pardon?
I said a lot of people think Tim Pool's success was because of that hat that he wears, and I think your friend Panzerotti does the same thing.
Kohberger, yeah, he goes by an opera singer, right?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, so, but yeah, no, this whole gig, and you know the way when I watched the response, I got angry. Like it was like he was talking down to you because he has a couple of thousand subscribers, like almost 30, but you know.
Yes.
He's I don't know. He puts himself up here and everybody else down below him. And people like that piss me off. So I thought, who better to go on with than Jason so I could display my distaste for this person as well. How did you feel when you...
Well, I appreciate this opportunity very much, Ellie, because as you know, both of us are deep in a lot of ways in this IDAHO4 case. And that's what we're going to discuss, as well as Embry. And on the Embry side of things, I obviously went over the top with some of my videos, and especially the one challenging him to a boxing match, but ultimately to an interview. And I said why I want to interview this guy, and he doesn't interview anybody. He only did one interview. He's got over 20,000 subscribers. You know, he's supposed to bring truth and transparency and justice to the IDAHO4 case, right? And free Brian Kohberger. Well, that's great. But why don't you do interviews? I got a lot of questions for this guy, and he doesn't address my channel. He doesn't address my name. He said on the last video, ESTEY, if you remember. He doesn't say ESTEY'S Crime Maze. Why, J EMBREE? Because I'll get to that 2,500 subs a lot faster if you just say and be honest, who am I on this YouTube platform for the IDAHO4 case? J EMBREE, but you wouldn't do it. And his ultimatum, as you know, Ellie, he wants me to get 2,500 subs. Then we can have the boxing match. He claims you'll box my ears off. I think it'll be the other way around. But I don't underestimate my opponents, but I'll carry him a few rounds. It'll be fun, and we'll raise money. And then I want to interview him. And he did say, I think,
but you have to win that fight. But you have to win that fight against him to get the interview.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That means I'm going to train
hard. There was
right?
like a multiple stipulation there. He's almost trying to put impossible odds in front of you, which really aren't impossible. He doesn't look like much, personally.
That's right.
I would go MMA with that fucking guy. I wouldn't just go boxing. I go MMA with that just because of what he said. And how
I know you would.
Let's say you punk
Yeah,
bitch.
yeah.
Let's go. Come on, Pamela Pavatini. Let's fucking go fucking MMA for charity.
But you
Look
know
at
what?
Joe Rogan to come fucking hold your towel to throw in.
But to lower my trigger response, because again, I think Ellie, he's all about triggering. We all do it to a certain extent, but he's really about triggering an emotional response from people. And that is part of disinformation. Later in this live, if you'll permit me, I'd like to read a... Yes, I think he very well could have been law enforcement.
Yep, they're trained for that.
Pardon?
Law
Exactly, exactly, Ellie. And unlike, you got nice shades on.
Thank you.
You don't, J Embbree, this guy, another, I think it's a Fed move, right? He wears shades in every single video except one. But one of his supporters, the woman said, well, Jason, he's got beautiful light blue eyes and people are
they're so
intimidated."
distracting.
Yeah, it's distracting. So he wears glasses.
At least I've shown my face. I've shown my eyes. I'm just scary looking, so I keep these on to protect all of you.
Protect us, thank you. You're so kind. No, and you got a beautiful soul. J Embbree, you know, by the way, Ellie, I will lower my triggered response for a moment and say, you know what? Just like a lot of controlled opposition out there, if he is, and or an agent, they can be nice people when you meet them. I could have a cold beer with J Embbree, maybe after a boxing match, if he has the courage to do it, and an interview. Maybe we could, I'm sure, have a cold beer together, most likely. But does he have the courage? Does he have the balls to interview somebody like me with a channel that's new but growing? And you've helped me a lot, Ellie, and I really appreciate it. Does he have the courage to interview somebody like me that's showing a totally different theory that we'll get into, hopefully, Ellie, right? That the students are actually alive. They're extracted. The feds did their job. And according to J Embbree, he makes it sound like every Fed, the U.S. Marshals down in Moscow, Idaho, they must be dumb as a stump, and they don't do their job. They don't know about escalating threats in that area, and they had surveillance around the house, which we'll get into. Are you kidding me? Come on. Thanks for listening.
It's got to play that narrative, right?
Exactly. My friends, it's all a pre-planned narrative. And part of disinformation, the belief system, Ellie, I was just writing it down tonight. When you buy into a belief system hard and fast right from the beginning, it's very difficult, as you know, to change people's mind. And even when you provide them information, they won't confirm it. They'll actually start to confirm their own biases potentially. It's very difficult, again, to get people out of that belief system that I believe J Embbree very possibly is doing all this on purpose. Who's he working for if he is? Is he really solo? Where did he come from? Who is J Embbree? I was a public speaker, as you know, during COVID, Ellie. Who is J Embbree? You know, and he can have his following, and I'll try to build up my channel and I guess get that magic number, 2,500 subs, so I can appease J Embbree, and we'll see if he's got the courage then. But I mean, come on, interview me now, J Embbree. Interview other people. He won't do it. And you got to ask why. That's suspicious to me. Don't you think, Ellie, or not?
He doesn't want to be put into a corner, or he'd have to consider something else. You see, you got to understand something here, Jason. I'm just going to do this quickly. You're the new kid on the block. You're the new IDAHO4 channel on the block, and all the other channels are watching you and your every move. And so when you come in here with this, after you even yourself had bought into the whole scam of the unalivings and all that, you admitted that, hey,
yes, they did.
It was actually Birdie's channel that got you to confirm what you were thinking, because he too said about the extraction theory. Now, I first laughed when I heard it, and don't be offended, but because typically it doesn't work that way, right? But this is not typically. Everything about this case is so not typically that it leaves so much room for all these creators to say all these things, and they can't be sued because so much information has been held back from this case. Like you said, there's been no leak autopsy, no leaked court transcription, and all this shit. So without that,
no leak removal of body information,
the little pieces and the little parts that you got you put them together. See, that's the part where you were able to be impartial, see all the channels and what they were saying. Well, you actually were able to pick out the important parts and put them together to come up with the extraction theory. And it's more, you know, and I hate to say it, but it's looking more and more like you're right because, and I will say because of the evidence and the lack of evidence. Okay, now there's no way this kid can by himself. They'd have it on camera. Look, this the father said the place is monitored with cameras.
The defense has also claimed that they're going to present alternate perpetrators. Do you believe there is anyone else involved in the murder of your daughter and her housemates?
No, not at all. There's surveillance all around there. You're going to clearly see who was coming into the place and exactly when they were leaving. And
so they would know who went in. Exactly. If they have them on camera, there's no need for a trial. We got you on camera, bud. You're baked. Unless he was wearing, a balaclava. Yes. Okay, but then they would judge height.
Right.
They would judge weight. They would judge footprint size, everything. They would have more evidence, and they don't. So that tells me there's so much wrong with this case and how it was presented and how certain YouTubers are pushing that narrative. And you yourself, it drove you nuts.
Totally.
You always went off about the guilters, right? So now even the ones who think Brian's innocent are still trying to come up with different, as if this all went down. And I don't know. The more I find, especially with Bethany Funk just coming into the scene at 2015. Well, she looks a lot older than 9 years old to me. So where the fuck is all her life info? Why no open caskets? Why all these things that you've been able to put together?
Yes.
Come up with to basically say, okay, now my calls traction, and it does.
Exactly. I'm trying to connect the dots. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you've been able to extract everything, put it together, and come up with a common sense thing, and then and I know how the feds work, not just the feds here, feds in the U.S., feds over Europe, Russia, anywhere. They're all the same, and they do things by the book. And if they got to protect their assets. These people were going to testify against certain people, say, okay, just for shits and giggles, we'll say the Aryan Brotherhood, okay? These people were going to testify against for drugs or guns or whatever, because we already know they hate everybody. So activities, right? They would have to protect them.
Yes.
And in order to protect them, if they knew somebody was coming in, and they would know, they would get them out. So this is all
totally great. You hit the nail on the head. Protecting valuable assets. Well, they were all valuable assets, or at least some of them in the house. We know this, right? Because of, even if you believe they're unalived, but there is no evidence to support that they're unalived. And here's the thing, Ellie, before I forget, I know we just started this live, but if I forget, I'll be very, very upset, and for the audience's sake. As I said, as you know in my videos, Ellie, speaking of the feds,
I'll post a link for your channel below in the stream later.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I want everybody to realize that I found this out. And anybody can look it up. You don't have to take it from me. As I've said over and over again, the feds can legally stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. Mm-hmm. You don't think the feds are trying their damnedest from the get-go? Because you look at the staged crime scene, you don't think they didn't try to orchestrate this violent event, and it should be celebrated. The students are most likely alive under a WITSIC program, protected. It makes sense, right? Extracted, probably in places like Puerto Rico, as I've said. United States have, one in Puerto Rico, maybe even in Costa Rica. Because, yeah, exactly. And there's infrastructure in place for all this. It's harder U.S. taxpayers' money. And again, we, the public, we don't have to be hoodwinked anymore. And we shouldn't go for these lies, I don't think, not to mention the disinformation agents like J EMBREE. He's trying to convince you, as you said earlier, Ellie, what is it? His narrative, Aryan family, the Aryan Knights. You talk about emotionally charged, pre-planned narrative. He puts out with no evidence to back it up, no concrete evidence, but they did the hit. They carried out the hit. There's no evidence that they carried out. Sure, they may have targeted them, maybe, or cartel bank members, they were definitely targeted by somebody, some of the students, right? But
Well, they
there's no
wouldn't be
evidence the hit got carried out. There's actually more evidence to support it didn't get carried out. What's that, sir?
They wouldn't be extracted if there was no danger, right? So yes, they obviously
Exactly.
knew that somebody was coming in. So
yes, but J Embbree, you know what he said, Ellie? I don't know if you remember this. He said in one of his videos, and I know you haven't watched near as many as me, and I'm glad you haven't, but no. But he puts out some good content. But J Embbree said, this is one of his outrageous proclamation pronouncements. He said, he claimed that he thinks the feds, they only provided enough security to make the families feel comfortable. I'm almost quoting him verbatim. And that they didn't recognize, he said in so many words, they didn't recognize the threat level. Are you kidding me? The feds are trained to do just that, right? To recognize behavioral threats. And that night they would have been trained to realize, and with surveillance, the threat level, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And remember, pardon?
Definitely, I agree.
Thank you. Remember Kaylee's question to Maddie at the grub truck.
What
and the
did you
feds
tell?
probably already knew this took place.
Yeah.
Kaylee said to Maddie, asked her, what did you tell Adam? Many YouTubers have played this over and over again, rightly so. And Maddie replied, I told Adam everything. And Jack, who was obviously somebody was after these students or didn't like them, Jack is there, you know, protecting them. Not Kaylee's boyfriend, but one of the other 3 or 4 Jacks in this case. It's pretty well. And Jack said, they're going to get you for that, Maddie. So did the feds already know what was said to Adam?
Yeah.
Or if they didn't, Kaylee, who was she texting right at the grub truck? We can surmise that I think she was quite possibly or likely texting feds that, oh my God, you know, Maddie's said here just a few minutes ago that they're going to get us. And then, you know, this is sort of pre-planned. Kaylee photobombed her mom the night before. Somebody remind me on Facebook. I talk about it in my videos. As one mother who has daughters the same age said to me, Jason, my daughters have never photobombed me. Now, it could be a coincidence or it was something set in motion. I can tell by your reaction. You think something was set in motion for this pre-planned sort of extraction operation to take place. Am I right, Ellie?
Yeah. Yeah, no, this
Makes sense.
Was too much. There's too much saying that what you think is more viable than what other people are thinking or saying. Anyway, I don't really think that all these people believe what they're saying. A lot of them are doing it for clickbait and stuff. But, you know, like I said, the more I looked at your theory and then all the pieces and parts of the puzzle that you picked out, I said, you know, this is very plausible. And then I looked a little deeper into other things. And like, this is a very plausible. And I think other people are starting to see your side of it, because I'm noticing more and more now. There's people at least bringing the possibility up, but hey, what, you know, so it's a positive sign. But I think you're facing adversity because people just were probably thinking, who's this new person comes in and just starts, you know, pumping out all this new theory and this whole, so, but it really wasn't.
But I gave credit though. Excuse me, Ellie, I did give credit, as you said earlier, to Bertie. He was the first one to really do a presentation on it. Then Tommy Jude at Once Upon a Crime Time, you guys could check out. I was interviewed by him. I was thankful of his main guest. Been on a show a few times with other cool guests. And Tommy allowed me, he wanted me to talk about the extraction theory. He invited me on. I didn't ask him. And Tommy interviewed Bertie before he interviewed me. And they talked about the extraction removal operation. And at that time, Tommy kept saying this. He said to Bertie, this answers everything. Now, Tommy will go on the bandwagon of others' theories and everybody else, but I don't knock him for that. But let's stay focused, you know. Let's not get away too much from the extraction removal operation, because, again, it all goes back to the staged crime scene. Did they treat this like a biohazard in your eyes, Ellie? The crime scene, the house, did they treat it like a biohazard afterwards?
They would have been in the suits, for crying out loud, if it was that bad. Right?
Exactly. A lot of times they did not wear.
Another thing that bothers me is how quick they demolished that house. What if that house was needed for evidence? What if they wanted to bring the jurors back there to bring them in and show them?
Yes.
Like, the house is gone now.
Yes.
Why?
Why is that? If it's a quadruple homicide, unaliving, you better believe they would have to bring jurors in. There's where you want to know, where's all this blood? Where were the students? How were they positioned? How are the assailants moving the house? Was it more than one perp? How could they do it? I mean, none of that can happen now. You bring in a 3D model. The defense team laughed to Ellie. I don't know if you know, and the prosecutors, they laughed at themselves in court saying, yeah, we're calling it a dollhouse, basically, is what we're going to use. Like, come on. So stupid. But it is what it is. It's all a big psyop, Ellie. You used the word scam earlier, but this is the IDAHO4 psyop. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's that's the one thing that really bothered me when I seen them tearing down the houses already. Usually we wait till after the trial, right? In case either side did that house for the trial to prove innocence or to try and prove guilt, right? So that's just another thing that's just, you know, like it cements what your theory is simply, and then the whole thing with
like I said, Ellie, if there's no crime scene, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, the slip up that Maddie bought a house.
Maddie just bought a house, you know.
These are generations that have stopped.
What? Did you guys just hear that? Look at Christy's hand.
Maddie just bought a house, you know.
She didn't say house.
Bubbly water.
But she said the Maddie just bought a house, and then she stopped. Well, we all know what she was going to say.
Yeah. Yes.
So
and that was Ellie, an interview. Excuse me, that was an interview that she did in front of Chris McDonough, an ex-cop, ex-homicide. And this guy, in my opinion, he's a complete sellout. You can't trust him. This guy is all about Brian Kohberger, I think, did it. Doesn't look at any other theories, doesn't look at the fact, well, wait a second, there's no evidence to even support this atrocity happened. How about, again, legally, you know, Chris McDonough, the feds can orchestrate violent events such as this, potentially, if a confidential informant has been compromised. It's an absolute joke. But the Steve G's and the wife, as you alluded to, Ellie, they're all over different interviews and mainstream media, and they put out this emotionally charged narrative, a disinformation, I believe. They're like actors at this point, running with the script. Why? To convince you that there was a crime scene. But they don't want to tell you, well, anybody, if you open your eyes, it was a staged crime scene. Hello? They didn't treat it like a health hazard. If you got blood everywhere, unalivings, I say unalivings for YouTube if this goes on YouTube, which I hope it does, but for you Facebook audiences as well, you know what we're talking about. Quadruple homicide. You are going to have a health hazard. That's why they had masks at times, but they didn't continuous have, you know, the PPE. U.S. Marshals sometimes didn't have gloves. The forensic scientists, we know, didn't have proper masks and slippers on half the time. Right? Because you don't want germs coming in and out and dirt and all this. And U.S. Marshals are moving the boxes out, and it's got Bethany's name on it, as you know, Ellie, surviving victim, very odd, or surviving roommate, pardon me. And then you had North American Relocation Services, Bertie found out from a researcher. And people say, well, wait a sec, that's just a moving company, Jason. They're moving out boxes. Okay. The parent company, though, is Serva, which has a Schedule 48, can move. They move valuable law enforcement assets, right? And federal government officials. That's not a coincidence. Sorry, go ahead.
No, they do a lot of stuff. Like they do simple moving jobs too, but they definitely do government cartage, like you said, valuable cargo.
Assets for the government.
So, you know, the biggest thing for me too, and again, you mentioned the surviving two. Why? Why would they kill 4 and leave 2?
Yes.
And there's only
two
J
EMBREE never answered those.
No, but there's only 2 reasons why.
Either
those kids were extracted and they left the other 2 to call the 911 and get everything going, or they're involved. If say these kids were unalive, then these 2 surviving roommates are probably involved with those people, and that's why they were left alive. That's the only 2 possible scenarios I can see, that those 2 people were left alive. Because if I went in and unalive 4 people, I would not leave 2 living.
No.
I would take them all out. No witnesses.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So
it doesn't happen exactly. But let's go back to J EMBREE again, because you know how he'd answer your question? He would say, well, I said that, that I think the assailants, he said this in so many words, the assailants intimidated Bethany and Dylan to not call 911 because the 911 call was delayed for 8 hours, remember? So they're going to leave them alive. Why would you leave them alive, like you said? And and you're really going to be able to intimidate two witnesses, communicate with them the night of all these stabbings taking place. You're going to communicate, intimidate them, and then they can call 911 after 8 or 9 hours. No, that's the feds. The feds would have told them, I believe, and debriefed them, reason, logic, common sense, said, do not call 911. We're extracting and protecting these students. You know, come on, right?
Yeah,
makes sense.
Like I said, those two would not be alive. Especially if the Aryans went in there to get rid of the 4, they would not leave.
Exactly. Did you hear that, J Embbree?
They're chasing fake. They're chasing fake narratives. Is what they're doing, and they're trying to make it stick.
That's right.
They're looking at everything, throwing it at the wall, and hoping it'll stick. Right? It's just not sticking, but yours is starting to stick. So
that's right.
You know, with me anyway, I find the more I research this, the more your theory is possible, and the less their theory is provable. And that actually you're using the facts to build your theory, whereas they're using narrative to prop. They don't have any facts to back it. They have a lot of know this and know that, and there's no house, it's gone. There's no fucking. I don't know. It's just. And I heard, I was listening to Birdie. Now, my Greg, he does mention a lot of good stuff. But they were talking about so many different things just in that maybe half an hour that I listened to it. And the girl that was with them, they were kind of going back and forth, and they had a guest on who was a friend of Brian Kohberger. But all three of them, between the three of them, I was getting lost. There was so many fucking narratives and so many fucking things talked about, except the extraction theory.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I'm thankful to be interviewed by you, very much so, Ellie. And that's why also beforehand, before we had the idea of doing the interview together, and first on your amazing platform, your audience and community out there, I, as you know, asked Birdie, and he said yes, and he since has bailed on me. Hopefully he'll leave it open for the future. He sort of said that. And, you know, I just hope that more people will have the courage. It shouldn't take much courage, I wouldn't think, to talk openly about, okay, where is the evidence of this atrocity? If there isn't any evidence, well, again, what do the feds do? Like they can stage a violent event. It happens. They can do extraction move. They have the WITSEC program. And, you know, J Embbree, he showed, you know, the basics of the WITSEC program in video. And that's why I did an apology video, as you know, to Embry, because the first video when I exposed him, I thought he didn't talk about the WITSEC program. And I said I was almost sort of convinced of that. I was incorrect. But even the basics of that WITSEC video, the FBI don't tell you where it is in legal documents. Anybody can find it. They can stage, again, a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. J Embbree refuses to tell you any of this. He just wants his audience to think I'm crazy. When anybody listens to my video, even though I may be over the top at times, you know, as you said, Ellie, we're connecting the dots on this extraction remove operation theory, and other people are too. And I think everybody should, if you really want to know the truth. And I don't think J Embbree is being honest, in my opinion, in elements of this case, especially when he's saying Aryan Knights took out the hit. Really? Imagine how much power that, too, gives to some potential gangbangers out there. Who the hell is going to want to snitch in Moscow, Idaho, or Washington State if you think, right, that gangbangers were able to do this successful hit of 4 healthy people with cars all around, people all around, right? Cops against surveillance around the house, agents all over the place, and you're going to be able to go in there and do this? Like, come on. No way. Yeah. I'll never believe that anymore.
No. Well, that one girl you sent me a video of, and she was going after Birdie, I believe. But I listened to her for about 10 or 15 minutes, and she was really bam, bam, bam. She was like, yeah, this person's common sense. And then she turns around and says that she believes that they were all off. Right? So I'm like, oh, man, how can you have so much common sense and not see? Right? She's so busy. It's almost like she's trying to make a career going after Birdie because her whole channel.
Yeah, that's
it's
what
all
it is.
Birdie, right? So maybe there's just a personal
very true.
relationship between them or something. But yeah, no.
Yes,
so I mean,
I think
she's a very intelligent woman, and she was bang on with a lot of things she was saying. So, but as soon as she said, well, okay, well, you know, and then she went with the narrative, I'm just like, oh man, you can't. You can't.
That's right. No, yeah, her channel seems to be more about certain big time creators, YouTube creators. At times, she'll I think factually she's able to pick them apart when they're not making true statements. But at the same time, like you said, she hasn't done her research. She continues seemingly to believe this atrocity took place, but never looking at the fact that it was a staged crime scene. There's no evidence, again, of the removal of the bodies, as many people are starting to talk more about, thankfully. No pre-trial evidence of the bodies, which is unheard of. No raw crime scene photos leaked. J Embry, for you. No raw crime scene photos leaked. You might want to tell your audience there, J Embry, that in almost every high-profile case we know these days, mainstream media, fake news, they're able to get those leaked photos from high-profile crime scenes because they have the money, they have the resource, they have the connections, they have the persuasion, and even the coroner. I predict, I agree with Birdie, I don't even think she's going to testify in this trial. We'll see. And the Jeffrey Dahmer trial, we know the coroner testified, so that should be interesting. And I don't buy the coroner's public statements. We also know, you know, as somebody reminded me and other people have, he had a corrupt cop, Tolleson, who was at the autopsy. The photos disappeared. I think that was said in the hearings. You know, the transcripts, huge red flags. Again, if this was all in the up and up, you'd hear about that. You'd have the photos. You'd have the documents of the autopsy. As you said earlier, Ellie, as I've said before, too.
You have the fucking video from that night at the house that they have all these cameras on.
Yes.
That's what I'm just and the fact that anyone can protect that narrative after knowing that come right out of the father's mouth.
Right. Do you believe there is anyone else involved in the murder of your daughter and her housemates?
No, not at all. There's surveillance all around there.
Fuck off already. Get fucked.
That's right. And Ellie, without me going too deep in the rabbit hole of Brian Kohberger, because we could talk for a whole hour on just this guy that they arrested, but J Embry doesn't tell you. He wants to free Brian Kohberger. That's great. I agree with Embry and so many others. He had nothing to do, as we said, with this crime. He couldn't have done it, particularly a lone wolf, let alone even 2 or 3 perps. But Ethan Chapman, by the way, exactly, theater. And yes. What was I going to say about Embry there? What he doesn't. Oh, anyway, there's so much that he doesn't tell you. Again, you know, Steve G admitted there was surveillance around the house. We've been there. So obviously the feds would have known there was an escalating threat. They're surveilling his kids. There's no way it could happen. But he's all about the atrocity.
Happen, they would know who.
Yes, they would know who.
They would know who.
About Brian Kohberger, Ellie, before I forget, I was saying, J Embry doesn't tell you, and you know this, that the deep state, the FBI, the feds, all these guys that are trained, particularly the deep state, they will embed high intelligent people, often in high academic positions. I know this because I study the aerospace companies. They'll use professors at Harvard, you know, to spin that these UFOs are alien, et cetera, at times. Well, Brian Kohberger, I think, was on an assignment. I think, and some people have talked about this, he worked with the feds, most likely. He wanted a role in police, right? So he's got a police connection, folks. It wouldn't take much, wouldn't it? To, you know, they've done this lots in history, as Birdie, you know, has talked about and others, to use a Brian Kohberger, maybe to assist in good reasons, to help with the criminal investigation, the drug investigations that was going on. And then they use him as the patsy. He's the perfect distraction. Brian would have known this was going to happen, most likely. And for whatever reason, he's agreed to it. And yeah, you might want to say, as many people say, well, Jason, but even somebody said on Tommy Jude, rightfully so, they're thinking, well, he would spend 2.5 years in a jail cell. Well, we don't even know what kind of facility he's really in. And he's gotten healthy. He's no longer on drugs. He looks healthy. He could have a TV. He could agree to all this. He didn't have much of a life beforehand. You know, a PhD criminology student, didn't socialize much. You know, and the deep state, as you know, Ellie, the feds, they will work with somebody like that. They will groom somebody like this. And maybe he does have autism, like Dan Taylor said, but they'll use them for their agenda. And they will feed them drugs for their agenda. I saw this during COVID with the chaos agents. We saw it, right, Ellie? And then when they get too unstable, then they'll rein them in, you know, law enforcement, whoever's controlling them. You don't hear about them, and then they release them again to put out a certain agenda. You know, am I making sense?
Yeah. Yeah, Hollywood does the same thing. So,
Hollywood.
So, I mean, they do the same thing with these stars. When they start yapping in public too much, boom, they're off to a mental insane asylum, pumped full of drugs for some months, and you see them about a year later. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's the same thing with these, too. Yeah, no, I think Brian Kohberger is all part of the theater. He's a paid part of it. I hope he is.
Exactly. And he sure looks the part, doesn't he? He really does. This perfect part.
They're sure quiet on everything about him. Like, you know, like normally when you get a perp like of such a magnitude, especially killing 4 people, that's more than a serial killer. They'd be all over his past, right down to his fucking when he came out of the womb. Why have they not gone after this guy's past? They can't. Because he's part of the theater.
Yes, exactly.
Every fucking news agency in the country, pardon my language, I'll cut that out, would be down in his past. Oh, he hurt a puppy when he was a kid. Well, that's why he killed everybody. You know what I mean? They would do shit like that, but they haven't. Why? Why is this guy just sitting idle? I don't believe he's sitting in a jail.
Great question. No, I don't think so either. I think you're right. I think he's not.
He's probably in a hotel room. They just transfer him there in the jail garb, and boom, de boom.
Yes. Sounds like you worked for the intelligence community before, Ellie. Yeah, my God, you're brilliant.
Come out and say, "Yeah, we're doing time with him. He's in jail." I'm not going to believe he's even in jail.
No, until we see it. Exactly.
Exactly. Like that guy who they were interviewing on Birdie. The friend of his from childhood. No, not childhood, from adulthood, but he hasn't come out and said, you know, like anything about him in jail. He didn't even really talk about any of that. He just talked about, you know, what he was like and stuff like that. But they didn't get into anything about what jail he's in, where he's at, how he's doing. Has he got friends sending him money? Has he got women writing him, trying to get him married? You know, I mean, all these serial killers get all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Great points.
Why not hear about this?
Great points.
Just a lot of things that are inconsistent. That's
and you notice though, Ellie, without I don't want to trash J EMBREE. I just have major questions about this guy, and I challenged him. You don't hear J EMBREE talking about any of this, right? And I believe again, is part of his agenda. And it's not just money, I don't think. You got to ask, why is this guy putting this emotionally charged narrative with no evidence that he puts, you know, the word atrocity in the title all the time. Sure, we've been fed by law enforcement atrocity took place. Doesn't mean you have to believe it. He can't prove that the Aaron family, Aaron Knights, actually took off this, you know, did this hit. He can't even come close. The operation out front, you know, many people have shown the clips. That's probably that's for sure the feds. They're conducting a psyop, or they've already extracted the students. Again, you go by the surveillance that we know was around the house by testimony of Steve G and others. Come on, folks. And what the feds do, they were already onto those students and knew about a confidential informant. They had to. I mean, come on. The confidential informants worked with the feds, whether it be Bethany. I think Kaylee very well may have been a confidential informant. Look at her father.
If
you believe he's a fed.
Yeah, we know. Yes. We know. Was it Madison? No, Kaylee's parents were both being monitored because the Birdie showed a fucking Fed right outside of his house.
Do it in real time. Here's Spokane, Washington. Here's the I-90 corridor as it comes into Spokane, and right here, where it continues on into Spokane, you can take East Applewood Boulevard here instead, and it takes you south of Spokane to Spokane Valley. And as you go over, where's it at? Oh, yeah, right here. As you go over, you'll see this big park right here and South Sargent Street. And the house that they were living in at the time was, I believe, this one here, maybe this one. Yeah, this one right here. So let's take the road here. All right, so let's make sure we change this to October of 2022. And then we're going to head right up Sargent Street here. And look, you already see them sitting there, watching the house. So once again, if you were a group that was not happy with them, then you would see this and you would know what was going on. If you were a criminal, you would definitely not try to do anything to them with these guys sitting there. Oh, latest date. See more dates, October 22. There we go. It tries to change it, but there they are right there in their Chrysler Pacifica. And when you zoom in on it, you can see that hat right there. And you can see they're sitting here in a protection detail. See if it lets me go behind it again. Yep. Yep. Pacifica 5. That is a Fed mobile, and that's their house right there. And they're sitting there eyeballing that dude. So, once again, when we come in and we look at that hat, well, we know what that hat is from. Remember that hat. And then when you see the Cowboys hat here and a close-up and who's wearing that hat in that van, it sure looks like a match to me, and too much of a coincidence for me as well.
They're watching their
Wow,
house.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So
See?
it's very possible. I mean, they knew they were going to go after the kids because they couldn't get at the parents. That's what the whole point of showing that was.
Yes.
There was something else I wanted to mention too that really bothered me.
Take your time, take a deep breath. As you're thinking about that,
I'm just
thinking about that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, just let me go over a short list. This is just some of the list, if I may, of many things that Embry and so many others don't talk about. Well, we know there's no motive. Embry said that, especially with the Brian Kohberger aspect. We get it. But no post-crime scene DNA trail left behind. Again, you know, you got a quadruple unaliving, Aryan-Knights, Aryan family. Somehow they don't leave their DNA.
Yeah,
no uncensored photos, no forensically. What's that?
There's blood running down the wall, the front of the fucking place, but they didn't leave any DNA in there at all.
Exactly. Exactly. And to your point, real quick, Ellie, the blood, as you know, I'm about to say on the foundation of the house, I bought into it for a year and a half, because the feds had to put something in front of your eyes to make you think and believe everything you're told that the atrocity took place. You're not going to see the bodies. We're not going to show you any raw crime scene footage. We're not going to show you body bags coming out. We're not even going to have an open casket ceremony for any of the victims. We're going to believe they're just cremated. But I forget what but the blood, you know, on the foundation house, we know, come on. It's probably paint or pig's blood, and any cop, forensic scientist could do that in a heartbeat in the cover of darkness, and that's what they did. And it confused me too for a year and a half, but you don't have to buy into that either. But Embry, he doesn't talk about, again, the no uncensored photos, to my knowledge. He doesn't talk about no raw witness testimony, to my knowledge, or pretrial autopsy confirmation, none. No material crime scene, no pretrial evidence of the bodies, as I said earlier. What about that, J EMBREE? These are the questions I'd ask you, dude. No verifiable removal of the bodies. Did you know that, J EMBREE? You have to know that. Why aren't you talking about it? No surveillance footage continuity. Well, you know, Steve G said there's surveillance, but as Ellie said, Brian Kohberger and any other perps would be dead to rights because of surveillance. The cops are going to have it on camera. No Social Security death index, apparently. No unallied registration as of early 2023 and late 2024 for any of the so-called 4 victims. No post-mortem debt transfer funds. No public tax bereavement status. I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, it's absolute wild. But J Embbree, Ellie, he's got a massive audience, and he's not the only one. And is it in part because he puts this emotionally charged narrative? He wants to free Brian Kohberger. We all want to free Brian Kohberger. Well, yeah, most of us, anybody reason, logic, common sense, we know Brian couldn't have done the crime. Okay, that's fine. But then he takes it again and a step further. Is this disinformation, where it's an atrocity and it's done by family area nights? You J Embree supporters, I just ask you, please take a step back. Again, from your belief systems for a moment. Can you do it? And ask yourself, why is J Embree putting that narrative forward? Is there any evidence really to support it? And I would say no. This is what I love to talk about with J Embree. He could argue it, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't think he'll have a stand, he doesn't have a leg to stand on if he's asked these hard questions, you know, and shown the real evidence.
No, he like I said, his shtick is to keep everything in limbo so people are guessing. If he's giving them answers, they're going to quit watching. So he needs to keep his channel going. He needs to keep the clickbait going. And he's probably making money doing it. No one does all this for fucking free. Oh, except for me.
He does have memberships. Yeah, he doesn't ask all usually for money, but he has memberships where people obviously pay to get certain videos for the memberships, and he knows he's getting donations. Whatever, you get those donations, J Embree, but I hope one day, before I even get those 2,500 subs, because the trial might be over by then, we'll see how maybe this interview, I'm sure I'll get some new subs thanks to Ellie and her amazing community out there. And when I upload this to my YouTube channel, if people, even the supporters of J Embree, I ask you, I know I sound desperate, but please think about subscribing to my channel. If you still are caught in the belief, what's that?
I didn't say anything.
If you're still caught in the belief system, if you're still caught in the belief system of J Embree and you want to watch his videos, fine, that's okay. I used to watch him too. But please think about subscribing, if for no other reason than to help me get closer and get ultimately to 2,500 subs, so then we can really put J Embree on the spot again, and he will have to say yay for a boxing match and hopefully an interview. That's all I ask from you, J Embree hardcore supporters, and you're good people. Most of you are amazing people. I'm not saying you're not, and if you want to bash me, I can take it. I've got bashed a lot, even on the apology video to Embry. But please, everybody, try to use some reason, logic, common sense. Don't buy into disinformation campaigns. That's all I'm saying. If that's what this whole
even
thing
if they won't challenge you, they can still subscribe. I mean, I subscribe to people I would never drink with in public or hang out with. But no, I mean, sometimes it's because I challenge what they're saying. So it's better than just watching people you agree with all the friggin' time. Then you got someone comes along with something new. Well, you want to challenge it. So the best way to challenge it is to sign up, watch the content, and challenge it. I've seen you challenged in your comment sections, right? So I mean, it's not like you don't get any flack or anything. So I mean, but if they want to challenge anything you're saying, the best way to do that is to get involved, not to sit back on Pavarottini's channel there and then just knock you, right? Like come in and face you and say, look, this is what I think, and you know, it kind of negates your theory. But you see, the problem is they won't, because you have facts backing what you're thinking. Now, you've admitted this is just your opinion. This whole distraction theory is something that you came up with after picking all the parts and pieces out of all these videos. And credit to you, because not many people can do that, and no one had up till now. So now you come in with this new theory. If they want to challenge you, the best way to do it is to come onto your channel and challenge you, but not sit in the bar and throw rocks, right? Because those who throw rocks should not live in glass houses.
Yes, and one day, Ellie, I think maybe we could do a video and or a live, and I will show maybe screenshots of some of the brilliant comments that have been left and great questions from J Embree's supporters, no less. And then others, I will be honest and show some of the bashing. and we can laugh it off, or I read their comments. If it has any validity to it, I think then I can. That's great. But a lot of times it's just, I think, unnecessary bashing, whatever. But that's part of the belief system, right? Again, when you go in with a belief system, psychologists will say fast and hard. It's hard to change people's minds. That's all. But I think we could change a lot of minds out there and keep them open-minded, hopefully. Because if you're closed-minded, I mean, if I was closed-minded and you were, Ellie, we'd still be buying into law enforcement, FBI narrative, corporate media. Yes, the atrocity happened. Don't question no removal of the bodies, no forensic links, etc. The lack of DNA, all this. Don't question all that. Just focus, maybe free Brian Kohberger aspect, but don't look over here. Maybe an atrocity didn't take place at all. The students are protected. They are alive. And everything you've been fed by the parents, or largely, I think you're going along with the script. Steve G never cries, right? You got to wonder why. He's got righteous anger at times, right? He's supposed to sound, remember, despair. Same with the wife, I believe, if they're in on it. They're going to try to sound like you're in despair, but really, no crying, no tears from Steve G. Many times their behavior doesn't seem to match real grieving, typical parents. I know everybody grieves differently. And Ethan Chapman's family, remember, Ellie, they've said, Bertie said it, they said he played the interview. They're not even that. They're not even angry at whoever did this. Are you kidding me? Well, they know I believe they know their beloved son is alive. Otherwise, I would think you'd be really angry and you'd be bawling your eyes out at times in an interview. Or like really emotional, like sad. This is your beloved 6'3" handsome son that's in university, right? Living at 1122 King Road, and you don't break down big time in interviews. You're able to be so. It just doesn't seem right. I think most people, it didn't smell right with these interviews. And I think there's a reason, folks.
Yeah.
I can have some empathy, as I've said, towards the parents, Ellie. They may never see their young adolescent, so-called children or young adolescents. They may never see them again. If they're lucky, they might once in a blue moon. But if they're protected under WITSEC relocation programs, they may never see them again. And that's,
they'll have the choice down the road if they want to leave custody or stay in custody. Like the government will give them that option, right?
For the students? For the student?
Yeah. They don't have to stay in custody. After all this is blown over, if they want to leave custody, they'll be allowed to. Like, they can't force them to be in custody, right? So,
didn't know that. That's great.
Just going with what you said, though, and I just wanted to mark the words of famous Mark Twain. It's easier to fool people than to convince people they've been fooled. So, the first narrative they heard was from the police and MSM and the court. Well, it has to be true, but they don't look at all the common sense of all the things that are wrong with this whole case, and that's where they have been fooled. Much like people. With
I got to ask you, Ellie. Sorry.
I was going to say it's the same thing with the vaccine. They got everyone to take it under a false guise that it was a vaccine, not telling them, hey, this is actually gene therapy. And then,
that's right.
Now you can't even convince these people who are vax injured that they're vax injured.
That's right. I want to ask you, Ellie, when it concerns J EMBREE, let's not even talk about any other YouTube creator at the moment. J EMBREE. I've had him reply twice to me, thankfully, even though he doesn't personally, as you know, address. I want the audience to know he doesn't address me properly in my channel name. Shame on you, J EMBREE, for that. But I want to ask you, do you think it's huge red flags that this guy refuses to interview other people? Only one interview, just a half-assed interview with A.R. Hayes. Doesn't interview people with opposite viewpoints or ask them any hard questions, and pushes out the atrocity narrative and the Aryan Knights, Aryan family. Are those huge red flags? And do you think more people should be asking, what is going on? Why is J EMBREE doing this?
I think all 29
what do you think, Ellie?
subscribers should be worried about that. Now that it's been brought up.
Thanks for that entry.
That line, right? But, like I said, he can't let his channel die. So if he's confronted by people that, say someone comes along with a narrative that's different than his and proves them wrong, that could hurt his channel. So he's not going to do that.
Yeah. It could hurt his whole, it could hurt his life, right?
Of course, that's his money.
Yeah.
Like this guy could be or an ex-employee of the government, or he could be an employee of the government. But either way, he's got a gig going to make money on this channel. So
well said.
If that channel ends, his money ends, his extra money or whatever. So
yeah,
it's all in his interest not to have you on and not to have his narratives challenged because he's making money.
I see.
Clickbait. It's all clickbait for him.
Yeah. And
That's
is it, how does it
personally,
serve?
I'm not insulting him. I'm just.
Sure.
I mean, I have respect for him as an editor. If he does his own editing, I respect his editing.
Yeah.
But
if he does do it all on his own, yeah, we don't know.
Well, as people don't know that I do Jason's editing, right? So when you see him blow up, that was me. I was just fed up listening to him for an hour and a half, and I blew him up. But no, seriously, as an editor, I respect him. But I don't respect what he's doing. I don't respect the fact that he won't. Knowing that you've challenged him, he must have watched some of your video and heard your talking points. And I think that scared him.
It came across his feet.
Well, I think that scared him more because your talking points made sense. And your talking points are going to make sense to a lot of his subscribers if he puts you on his channel. That's what he's worried about.
And is that why, is that why he refuses to say even my channel name to show that kind of respect and integrity and honesty?
No, because he doesn't want people going to your channel.
I see. You hear that, J Embbree? Ellie's right, isn't she? J Embbree, I hope one day you could change your mind, dude, and show some real character. People talk about your good character, J Embbree, and you got class, and they use other adjectives to describe you. And we love what you're trying to do with Brian Kohberger. Many of us are trying to free him in our own way there, J Embbree, and getting information across. But where's your character when you don't even say somebody like me who spent a lot of time and being interviewed today with Ellie, time on this case, trying to bring truth and transparency. We admit when we make mistakes, and you won't even say my channel name when you respond to me. That just for that reason, J Embbree, I may have to knock you out when we hopefully box one day with the 2,500 subs or more. I know you're a bigger guy, J Embbree, but I got the speed. I believe the hand speed for sure, and I think I got better technique, and I got more drive and ambition. You better stay on that TRT, J Embbree. You admitted you're on TRT. Nothing wrong with that, I suppose. You admit you're on steroids. See, Ellie, he can be honest in some ways. But again, I always wonder, we talked about it earlier, where did he come from? Does he have a law enforcement background? As you said, is he a former employee of the feds? He wears glasses all the time. To me, that looks like a Fed. His narrative, is it suiting partly a Fed narrative? Or, it seems like it to me.
It looks really fishy. It does.
I don't know.
And he's not helping to stop that.
And that's all I'm saying, J Embbree. That's all I'm saying. Pardon?
He's not doing anything helpful to stop that thought process, right? But like I said, he's got his channel. He's got to protect his money, and I get it. I understand. I ran a channel too. I didn't have near the subscribers that he had. I had 7,000, almost 7,000 on TikTok and 2,700 on YouTube. But
great.
Had I had that many subscribers, I'd have done anything to protect that too. So the only difference is I didn't collect money. Like I got help sometimes, but I didn't pimp for money. I didn't have subscriptions to sell or merch or none of that crap. It was just Ellie's place. But
okay.
I'm True Think on and Jason is ST's on Rumble. We are both on Rumble. You want to promote your channel while we're thinking about it?
No, I don't want to promote my channel quite yet. When you please ask me that in a moment again, Ellie. Can you do that?
Yep. Okay.
I want to say real quickly. I'm ESTEY'S crime mates, but yes, we'll promote in a second. I want to say again what J Embbree, to my knowledge, Ellie, what he doesn't mention, some really important facts. Coroner Kathy Mabbitt never arrived till 5 p.m. to a quadruple homicide. Again, the coroner. The coroner's statement was wrong. She said they were all stabbed in their beds, asleep. Later, we know one person was on the floor. One person, she's saying at least with defensive wounds, I believe, and so could be asleep. Again, with the forensics at the so-called crime scene, as we talked about, no right apparel, no foot coverings at times, no mask, and yet you know it was a health hazard. Without sounding too morbid, with all the BLOOD, right, at the scene. Come on, folks. And the coroner, as many people said, Ellie was nervous, wringing hands. Maybe that can be explained, but later on she said to give information away was wrong. That doesn't happen. You know, she oddly explained Xana's, you know, behavior, fighting for her life. She mentioned Kaylee's, you know, different defensive wounds, and then Steve G has to run with that, I believe, on purpose, right, in his interviews. So I think those are really important. And again, these are questions I just might want to bring up, or statements with J Embbree, somebody like him, in an interview, or other people, and let's have an open debate. I'll be friendly, but I'll be firm in my conviction. And if J Embree's right, he can prove us and myself wrong, but I don't think he can. Now, speaking of my channel, thank you for asking. Yes, I'm at ESTEY'S Crime Maze on YouTube, folks. I'm on Facebook here, Jason Estey, of course. And I'm really thankful for Ellie for helping me with this channel. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. Hopefully it can continue, God willing. And I appreciate the time today so far in this interview. Once Ellie her and I talked about it, I was super pumped to do this. And I think it's important. You know, this is an important case, and we know why.
Well, and
right?
I think the fact that I've been following along with the case and all the facts, along with you,
Yes.
and hearing your side of things throughout my editing, has given me a good common sense look at this case, and it's just nothing common sense about this case, and that's what gets me. Now, the one thing that bothered me too was everyone's concentrating on this gun that cocked. Right, apparently right before the unalivings. But everybody was stabbed.
Well,
so where does this gun come in?
Well, J Embbree, first of all,
how did Kohberger sit there with a gun and threaten them and then stab them all? Like, none of this makes sense.
Exactly. But J Embbree, to my knowledge, Ellie, I'm pretty sure J Embbree was if you believe the audio is authentic, we don't even know if you could believe any of the audios, right? The enhanced audios, but it was an unmistakable sound of a firearm out front, if the audio is real and it's in real time. Yeah. But his argument, again, is that narrative that he thinks it's the assailants. Oh, really? Well, no, I would argue it's the feds, Embry. And even if Embry happened to be right, that operation out front, Ellie, you know, if this extraction remove operation took place, which I believe it did, the feds already got them out. They're under WITSEC protection. The feds would have known the threat level. They knew what was going to go on that night if there was really a hit to be taken out. We've already explained this, but Embry doesn't explain this. He makes no sense, in my opinion.
And you don't you don't bring a gun to a knife killing. Like, what?
No, I don't think so.
That's just stupid. No, the fact that they're even centering in on that.
Yeah, if you're stabbing people, your gun could be also taken away by one of the victims, or you could drop your gun. And, you know, I guess guilters think Brian Kohberger really left his knife sheath, and, you know, and somehow they got touch DNA on a knife sheath. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's just, no. Just, no, that's
of all the crime cases, Ellie, of all the crime cases that you've researched and or come across and watched, do you know any crime case that is this wild and nuts and crazy and so many unanswered questions and secrecy, etc.? If I'm explaining.
Well, the only one right now that I can compare it to is the Tim Walz, the assassination of the Minnesota governor, and apparently it was the state governor who had her. She was a Senate member or whatever, and the guy, you know, the guy who ran with Kamala, Tim Walz. Well, he's the state. Yes. I think he's the state. Whatever, he wanted them killed so he could take over their jobs. So,
my,
yeah, no, he wants to be governor of the state. That's what it is. He's so you know, like I said, he had a whole list of people for this guy to take out. So now it's all shut down. We haven't heard anything since that first few days, and so yeah, that case is really crazy. But this one is with the most inconsistencies and lack of answers, or even to narratives. You know, like usually when the police come out with a narrative, they'll come out with a storyline, but they don't have that storyline they have. They're broken and stupid. You can't even put it together and make one storyline out of it. So you've got a whole bunch of different people.
Well, that's why, yeah.
Like this fucking FBI broad, what's her name? What's that FBI broad's name that got caught creeping around that guy's house? Sackendorf.
Jennifer Coppendorfer.
Yeah, well, she's pulling out a narrative that he's an incel or whatever. What? So he killed 4 people because he's an incel? Get fucked. So anyway, you get all these different people spewing all this different crap. The only one who's really impressed me, aside from you, is Bubbly Waters. She has really done her homework to try and but I think she's still stuck in that free Brian Kohberger that it was the Aryan guys who did it, I think. But I hope
she might, because she supports her.
You should try and get her on, because I'll tell you right now, even if she works from the distance, she doesn't have to go on camera. She can put a picture there and just do audio. Okay. Right? I mean, give her that option.
Oh, cool.
She does her research. She does present herself well. Like your friend Panzerotti there, he just sits there with his glasses and he's very boring. But with her, she leaves. She doesn't go on camera, okay? So she's strictly audio. But her information is a hell of a lot more accurate than his. So I think so too. He's somebody who
I think because she works. Thank you. I think I definitely will reach out to her in that way, Ellie, for an interview, hopefully. And I think she very well may have bought into this atrocity for the longest time with the Aryan family, Aryan Knights. Why? Who's the only one that has put that really constantly, or one of the few, is J Embbree. Right? It's just, and then you got True Crime Design. They do some good work, but they believe the atrocity happened.
I think a lot of people are afraid to pull away.
And that's where I believe they go wrong.
A lot of people are afraid to pull away from that narrative because everyone else thinks. It's like the sheep syndrome.
They're afraid. They're afraid.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid.
They're doing it. I better do that, or I'm going to get laughed at or sent it out. And then you come along and you don't care if you get sent it out because you have your thoughts on this case, and you're legitimately allowed to say, as long as you're saying it's in my opinion, you're not presenting your case as facts, you're presenting the facts as your case. So they really can't charge you or sue you or do anything like that. You're simply taking the facts and putting your thoughts on the facts. Instead of running along with the sheep narrative of the Tortellini crowd there, the Papatronis, and
the Trumps, exactly.
Well,
J Embbree, Ellie's making fun of your name in part because you made fun of me by not even addressing my actual cool channel name that Ellie helped me come up with, ESTEY'S Crime Maze. You son of a...
I think that was disrespectful, and I think he did it out of disrespect. Which, well, I don't mind.
I can handle it, but you know what? We're not done with this guy yet. I think he deserves some more constructive criticism in the future, and questions, and also people who again want to support somebody like that and this narrative he's putting forward. I'm not telling you don't. I'm just saying, everyone, please use some objective reasoning and let's try to motivate people to do interviews and ask, and try to motivate J Embbree, maybe get out of your shell, dude. If you're the real deal, interview. It doesn't have to be me. It'd be great if you did. But if you're not going to interview me, interview other people, especially that don't go along with family. Aryan Knights did a hit and they got out clean. They left 2 roommates alive. A late 911 call, and you got a stage crime scene, Pavarotti, however else says it, that you don't talk about. You refuse to show your audience the truth, the stage crime scene. This was a psyop. Again, in my opinion, I think it's obvious.
Well, see, I think it this way. I think people should watch all the channels. You don't know your whole story until you've heard all the different opinions or facts or whatever. So you've got to kind of watch everything. No one should exclude channels, and nobody should exclude yours. I think that they should also watch yours if they're watching the others. And even if they disagree with you, they can, okay, fine, they can get a good laugh. But you know what? I think Jason's going to get the last laugh here. I think he's right. And that's just my opinion. But from the facts that he's shown me, and that you all have shown me through your videos, I agree with Jason. I really think there's so much fishy crap with this case. So much so much unpresented. So much censorship on thought process.
Yes, censorship.
You got to think what we think, or we're going to intimidate you. Well, Jason and I don't think like you. We don't care about your intimidations. Trust me, I know all about intimidation.
Right.
And I watched all the channels in order to know who's credible, who I deem credible, and who I deem not credible. And the one that stands out is about God. And that other lady you presented, and I can't remember her channel name, and I'm so sorry for that. She presented a video about those 3 guys in the park that got pulled over right after the unalivings. This apparently happened.
Was that open?
Remember,
was that
one
open
guy was wearing sunglasses. This is like 3:30 in the morning. He's wearing fucking sunglasses. Yeah. The cop didn't question it. Come on, get fucked. That was a prop.
Right.
So much fuck. Even the lady doing it, she goes, this is all messed up.
It's made at 3:01. So somebody called the police. Somebody called it in and said that there were 3 young men that were intoxicated. They could have been drinking, but they don't look very intoxicated to me. They weren't stumbling. So I wonder if the Banfield was about distracting the police and nothing else, so that the 4 figures could buy their time and run back to the frat. The 4 figures ran at 3:14 in the morning. So if this guy is wearing a female shirt, and you can see it's much smaller than him, it's more made for a small size person. My question is, could he have borrowed the shirt from Maddie, Bethany Funk, Zana, someone petite, someone really small? And it's just a question. Don't come for me. If you pay attention to his hand, when I zoom in, his hand doesn't look right. Pay attention to this. All I've done is zoomed in. Do you see how red his hand is? Could he have got a bite mark, a knife mark, an injury on his hand? And could that be the reason he keeps on covering his hand? I can't clearly see if his button's on the right hand or left hand side, but it's just weird that a tall man like him is wearing such a small shirt. He keeps on looking towards the bushes. And if you'll remember, that is where Maddie, his black coat, was found, which I've always pointed out. If you look at the timelines with these 3 young men and the Banfield police stop, it lines up more with Zan and Etienne.
Why are they not even questioning? Why are this guy's wearing sunglasses at 3 in the morning? And the other guy's got his hands in his pocket. and the other one's got both hands in their pocket.
I remember that. Yeah.
Saying, "Hey, get your hands out of your pocket," like you do to everybody. They don't let you have your hands in your friggin' pockets. You blow their head off.
That's right.
So these three guys and then got cleared and let go right on the spot. Fuck, get fucked. Fuck off. Don't even go there with me. Cops don't do that. No cop does that. No. Not even bumblefuck Barney Fife wouldn't do that. Sorry. I get passionate. But look.
That theater really got you wound up. Yeah,
Jason's channel, hear Jason out. That's all I'm saying. If you want to get a laugh and you agree with Tanzatini there, go ahead. That's fine. But watch Jason's channel. Hear Jason out. That's all you got to do. And
thanks.
I really do think what he's saying is making more sense than what any other channel is saying. And not because you think, oh, he's sticking up for the friend. Actually, no, I don't do that. I don't have to do that. Jason can stick up for himself. I'd like to come watch the boxing match personally, but I don't.
I'll get you front row tickets, Ellie.
I believe he's right. I really in my heart believe he's got more to stand on than any of you people that are doing channels about this IDAHO4. Because you're sheep, you're buying into the narrative, you're basically voting for the one who feeds you, even though that's the one that's going to kill you. Yeah. You're buying into bullshit. Yeah. Look at all the evidence. I look at my enemies. I watch MSM all the time. I hate them. I loathe MSM, which is mainstream media, because they're all lies and propaganda. But I have to know what they're saying in order to know. Yeah. Yes. Know your enemy. Well, know your adversary as well. If you want to consider Jason your adversary, good. Watch him. Give him that chance. But I personally think you're afraid to, because you know his facts are going to make sense to you, and you're going to believe his thought process on this whole case. That's what I think. Because he did it to me too, and I doubt it. Okay. So, like I said, I first snickered when he first started talking about the extraction, okay? And I will admit that. I told him that. But as things went on, and as the more points he brought up, got me thinking, okay, well, I'll look into these things. And I did. And everything he's saying is correct. But everything you're saying can't be corroborated. So who should be getting laughed at here? People who are spewing crap they can't even corroborate, or people who are questioning the narrative using the facts at hand? I'd say the ones using the facts at hand are got the upper hand on this one. And that lady who did the video, I'm going to get her channel. I have that video still. That lady's smart. And she's very articulate in how she talked about what went on with these three kids getting pulled over right after these apparent unalivings happened. And I was impressed by her as well. That's another one I turned above the waters. But, you know, like I said, people, watch them all.
Thanks for all that, Ellie. I appreciate the accolades, and we're on the same page. I was wondering, Ellie, J Embbree, back to him again. The dog wants him, but I find it curious, at least me personally. Remember, he exposes somewhat, some of the people that are Brian Kohberger guilters, like Chris McDonough, right, who interviewed Christy Gonzalez and Steve G. We talked about that earlier, what Christy, I think, accidentally blurted out, how he bought a new house. But he doesn't expose the ex-FBI agent, Jennifer Koffendorf. And I wonder why. Why wouldn't you say Embry? Because she's one of the biggest Brian Kohberger guilters, as you said earlier. She says he's an incel, she thinks, and she thinks he hated. This is what corporate media put out for over a year or two, right? That they think they hated Brian Kohberger. Brian Kohberger hated Kaylee Gonzalez and Mattis Mogan because of the love that they shared. And Jennifer went on to say how she thinks Brian had this, grown inside him. She said so many words from the get-go. So why, J Embry, why haven't you said a peep? I'm pretty sure he has a peep
No,
about Jennifer Kohberger, ex-FBI. Is that because you're ex-law enforcement, J Embry? I'm asking you, and that's what I'd like to ask you on a live, perhaps, or maybe I'd let that go. Maybe I'd ease off on that hard question. But those are the questions I have sometimes in my mind percolating about this Pazarati, or J Embry. I forget. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Palatini.
Oh, by the way, Ellie, Palatini, thank you. Disinformation, real quick. Just a one part of disinformation to tell people. And I'm not going to mention any names, but who we've talked about today, you might want to think about, is this possible? Look out for emotional red flags, right? We talked about this earlier. Disinformation is designed to trigger your emotions, shock, anger. Think about Steve G, I believe, and Christy at times. Fear and laughter. They all make you more likely to share content with others. Emotional red flags include content that and triggers an emotional response and make a bold statement on a controversial issue. Aryan Knights, Aryan family might be one, right? That they did this atrocity, makes an extraordinary claim. Again, AKAF, Aryan family. How about them doing atrocities? Is that an extraordinary claim? I would say yes. Seems too good to be true. And contains clickbait, like you want to believe this video, right? And some of us are guilty of that at times. I get it. I may go overboard in apparently, you want clickbait to a certain amount, but you don't want to sell out completely, right? If you have integrity, and you don't want to endanger people, that's for sure. If something you come across online really hits a nerve, consider doing a quick fact check before sharing with others. And that's why I want to do this interview in part with Ellie today. You guys can fact check. Ellie's got a huge community out there, very amazing supporters and people that really admire what Ellie's done, being an amazing activist and a person, and she's digging in a true crime case called the IDAHO4. And her and I have bounced ideas off one another, and I'm glad we've come largely to the same. It took a while, but we are on the same boat, that the evidence really shows, I think, that there was no atrocity. The students are protected likely, and hopefully they'll live a beautiful lifestyle. But let's not go along with all this ridiculous speculation all the time, at least, And let's talk about this valid theory, I think. Extraction remove operation by the feds. They did their job. I give credit to the feds. They never have to be angry at me, even though they probably don't watch my videos, although they might. And I think we're treating U.S. Marshals like a piece of shit, like Embry, I believe, is, when he tells you that he thinks they only provided enough security just to make the families feel more comfortable. Did you hear that, U.S. Marshals in Moscow, Idaho? Think about that. That's bullshit.
Yeah,
U.S. Marshals did their job.
Yeah, no, that's.
They had to do their job.
Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to question who did it. They would know. Like that's what everyone still, even after this has been brought out, they're still ignoring it. There's fucking cameras there. Cameras don't lie. They record what they see and who they see.
Yes.
A bunch of Aryan dudes went in there. They would know. So if one person went in, they would know. They would know how tall that person is. They would know how much that person weighed. They would know pretty much everything just by looking at the freaking video. I've seen police do it in many cases. I watch crime shows every day, okay? I mean, real crimes that have evidence to show this is how police work. So the fact that this case is so hush-hush, so censored, and so questionable. There's too much questionable about this case. And if this is a real case, it's going to get thrown out because there's just too much questionable crap.
I agree. And that could be part of the script, right, Ellie? That they could be wanting, as Tommy Jude said on Once Upon a Crime Time, they may want Brian Kohberger off on a technicality. Looks like it's going to be set up that way. We'll see. And I think, again, the defense team, unlike what Embry says, I think they're in on. They'll know that an extraction remove operation took place, but they want to keep their jobs. They're involved in this corrupt, intimate system, and they're going to try to get Brian Kohberger off, which is a good thing, but they're not going to tell you what really went down on November 13, 2022. And I believe the students are, again, were rescued by those feds. It's up to us to put the dots, connect the dots, and I think we can. I think we've shown it a lot. And there's something else I wanted to say about the feds real quick. Ellie, what was it? It'll come to me. It'll come to me hopefully before we're gone tonight. But the escalation of the threat. It had something to do with that. I can't remember exactly what I was thinking, but it had to do with, again, they would have known that, hello, if there's Aryan family and Aryan Knights anywhere near that house, you better believe the feds would have contingency plans, right, Ellie, to be put in place. That night, you go in. It could have been like a kidnapping. They're not going to be wussy pussy. Oh, can you come out, girls? And Ethan Chapman, there's Aryan Knights, Aryan family members potentially after you, and we're going to extract you and take you out. So to get your things ready. No, it would have been quick, ready to go, and possibly pre-planned, if you believe, because Kaylee photobombed her mom, which is very unusual.
Yes.
And the feds knew they had to make a move that night, But J Embry doesn't want to go there? You don't even want to entertain that idea or bring it up at all? And I'm not the only one now who's bringing it up. Ellie, myself, Tommy Jude, right? Birdie, the whole presentation. I mean, come on. So I asked the community for J Embry. Great, support this guy. You could think he's a great guy, but maybe challenge this J Embry dude to start interviewing other people and show, well, wait a sec, J Embry, others have showed this is a staged crime scene, man. They didn't treat it like a biohazard, man. There's a reason for that. Right?
And the fact that she photobombed her mother shows that she knew something was up and that she wasn't going to be able to do that in a near future, and that's why she did. It's not like you would do that in the middle of being unalived by anybody. If anyone's running around your house stabbing people, you're not going to be photobombing mommy with your phone. So she would have had no chance to do that. She had to have known that she wasn't going to have a chance to have those pictures unless she sent them to her mother, because they're going to take that phone from her. They're going to take all their phones. Their evidence on trial.
Well said. So they knew, in other words, Ellie, the girls knew a threat was imminent. That's why they had Jack.
They knew they were being extracted. And I think the whole fact of Maddie, what did you tell them? Was what did you tell them about the feds extracting us? And she said, I told them everything. That's what I think.
Brilliant. I think you're right. I never thought of that like that. Yes.
Right. So now they're
That's
all
amazing
gone.
information.
Maddie just bought a house because, what was it? Her mother? Was it her mother that said that, or no? That was Kaylee's mother, wasn't it? That said that.
Kaylee's mother, yes, Christy G. Correct.
Yeah, it was Kaylee's mom that said that Maddie just bought a house. Well, how would she know what Maddie's doing? She should know what her own daughter's doing. I don't know.
Right.
No, and there's so many people who are just ignoring these as that's whatever, that's fake or whatever. No, it's not fake. These fucking people said it right in an interview. It's not fake.
That's right.
Like you said, Jason, those parents are fucking up. They're saying too much. They're rambling.
I think so.
And she just about come out and said the full sentence, and they cut her off part way. They probably were like this behind the camera going, stop it.
Yeah, Christy,
she cut halfway through the words. And Maddie just bought a house.
If somehow it could really be explained innocently, why would Christy leave the interview too? She left. So Steve G, Ellie, I find it, he's a fascinating character in all this, as you know. He, right from day one, almost, right? He's there putting out this super emotional charged narrative. And yet, your beloved daughter, we're supposed to believe from you and the feds involved in this case, or CIA, etc., that, and university establishments in on a lot of this, I'm sure, right? We've talked about this, follow the money. They want to protect the reputation of universities, right? They want the money to come in. They're not going to tell you that these students were targeted, certainly by any gangbangers, and that, well, no, the hit didn't get carried out, folks. We, the feds, they rescued them, and they're extracted in a removal operation. It's called the WITSIC program, folks. But we're not going to tell you that. What father would want to send their kids to school the next day realizing, all the And as Bertie talked about and others, and Tommy Jude, right? You had feds working the universities. You had dorm rooms storing product at times, drugs. This is all happening across small towns, unfortunately. And the feds were doing their job to investigate, gangbangers working potentially at these universities and the infrastructure of these universities. Bertie, again, has talked about this pretty intelligently, and I think it was all a reality going on. And a lot of the feds were doing their job. This is what ultimately they're not perfect, but they're ultimately there to, especially to protect what was happening 1122 King Road. Finally, Ellie, Embry, he likes to go on and on about how he thinks it was a safe house. Well, maybe it was a safe house in some ways, but again, these students were not unalived like you keep going on about, Embry, in my opinion, and you can't prove otherwise, Embry. And if you can't prove otherwise, if you can prove I'm wrong and others, do an interview. Again, it doesn't have to me interview Ellie, interview somebody.
Do a video proving
exactly.
It.
Exactly, he can't.
The proof isn't there. The proof says what you're saying. All the facts that are out there really much lead down your alley. So he knows he can't do a video proving anything.
And curiously, Ellie, I don't think, I could be wrong. I don't watch every J Embry video, obviously, and I can't even hardly stand to watch the videos recently, and especially the way he treated me, but I'm half joking.
Yeah.
But he probably hasn't even mentioned the word psyop. And if he has, very rarely. And a lot of people will bring up the word psyop, and that's great. But as I've said to you before, Ellie, very few people, nobody really defines what a psyop is. And if you allow me, I want to define about 2 minutes what a psyop is. I want you to thank you. I want you to think about the IDAHO4 case. I want you to think about some of Steve G's narratives, the FBI's narratives, the information they put out. Think about maybe a guy like J Embry, just saying, and others. Okay, here we go. A psyop is there's 3 different types, of course: tactical, operational, strategic. The military, we know, often conducts psyops. Same with law enforcement. We'll get there. It's known by many different terms, right? Hearts and minds, some of you may have heard, certainly propaganda, psychological warfare. And it's really any psychological, and by the way, I talked about this in my public speeches, some of this. I'm the only one to do that. I think I pulled it off. But it's any activity that is practiced mainly by psychological methods with the aim of elucidating or evoking a planned psychological reaction in another person. Another way of saying it is when you take selected information and indicators to an audience, possibly J Embry, possibly Steve G and others, to affect, taking selected information and indicators to an audience to affect your emotions, value systems at times, belief systems, right? All about perception management and objective reasoning, as I may have already said that. And it can be targeted, of course, towards individuals or groups. Think CIA, corporate media, right, affecting the public. Some of social media creators, I believe, deliberately causing public confusion, and maybe Steve G and the wife. But that's what a psyop is, and it's a very, very important part, by the way, of the military, economic, interests of the United States and really every sovereign nation. This is a real reality, and again, think about how the Fed can legally stage a violent event if a confidential informant has been compromised. That is conducting a psyop. If an extraction operation took place, right? They're removing those students. They're coming in, guns blazing. We got to get you out. That's a type of psyop. The staging crime scene. That's a psyop. Tactical, strategic psyop in the way they put the emotionally charged narrative through corporate media. I hope you guys agree and that makes sense. I think it does. I think it's important. Would you agree or no?
Yeah, no, it's what a psyop is, right? A lot of people don't even consider them. False flags are psyops. There's a whole different kind of psyops.
Yes.
But yeah, I know definitely. I believe that that these kids. I don't know what the hell they were into. I think it's more their parents, but I can't say for sure. Maybe the kids were into it too. But it's just the whole 2 roommates being left alive that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Everybody's been questioning that. Why were they left alive? Embry can't really answer that, even with his theory. I don't think he ever can really answer with reason, logic, common sense.
The only thing that makes any sense is what you're saying. that the cops told them to. Because any thug tells you to wait an hour and call the cops, you're going to wait till they're out of sight. And you're going to call the cops right away. You're not going to wait 8 fucking hours. Stupid.
Exactly.
Right? So,
yeah,
no, the cops told them to wait that long.
These girls, Beth and Dylan, Ellie, they were ferocious young sort of, adolescents. They had partied. They're not like wishy-washy little princesses, just weak people that are going to potentially not call 911 for 8 or 9 hours. You're scared. Remember, the shock phase, it's proven to be incorrect. It's a lie. They weren't even in the shock phase like we were told for a year or 2 years, man. Yeah. So, right?
So, like I said, there's so much that validates what you're saying and so little to validate whatever else is pushing.
But let's talk about it, friends. Let's talk about it. That's what we're doing. We're talking about, we're discussing.
If people want to doubt you, the least they can do is do it to your face, right on a live stream. Like at least, what's his name? The one he did a stream with the other night.
Tommy June, once upon prime time. Tommy.
At least he gave you the option to say your piece, right? He didn't want to go into it, but at least he sat there and let you say your spiel. Like, I don't know. Right. That to me was more honorable than what anyone else is doing right now. It's easier to attack.
Coming from you, especially, I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Well, it's just people are attacking you yet not seeing what you're saying.
I think you're right.
Discouraging, like they're attacking you without even knowing. That's what the left is doing right now. They're attacking everybody under false bullshit, right? So I don't know. This whole case is messed up. I think it's going to end up in a really weird way. Like you said, he's either going to be let off on a technicality, or they're going to make it look like he went to prison and out the back door with a new identity.
Yes.
Because there's no crime. There's no there. There's nothing to show that there's a there, and there's no proof of there. Where's the fucking bodies?
I personally, I can't envision, I don't know about you, I can't envision this guy, Brian Kohberger, after all this publicity and, as you know, international case now, really, not just in the United States. It means a lot to people in the UK. They're seeing what's going on, the DNA collection with the FBI, a lot of it done illegally going on the sites. It's a very, very important case. We don't want elements of the deep state, as Bertie's talked about, to legally obtain DNA, right? God forbid if a whistleblower speaks and you make this all legal, obtaining information legally, then make it legal through a false flag, like this psyop, I believe, then, people could be in real trouble. And again, the deep state, not your average FBI, but the deep state, the real evildoers out there that are in control, sometimes they want to override our rights, folks. And it's happened throughout history. 9/11, perfect example, even though it had nothing to do with DNA. They did a false flag to override our rights. We saw it. So people are talking about it, thankfully. This is an important case. And it's in the United States, but it can affect us Canadians, people, I would argue, really anywhere where the United States, the feds have, and the government has, are finally, right, and can control. So that's how I look at it. And I can't see a Brian Kohberger, though, being released publicly. I think he'll be, Art?
So this is happening in the U.S. It's happening here, too. Our cops work the same.
Yes.
Right? So there's fake cases going on here, too. I mean, don't think there isn't. Yes. So, I mean, this is not a far-fetched thing. It's not even, I'm not even say it's a narrative. I'm just saying your thoughts on this are not far-fetched at all, because it happens all the time. Look what they had to do with the biker trials and all that shit. Look at the crap they had to go through and the protection they had to give out and shit. So, I mean, it's no different for something like this. This Aryan Brotherhood is like a gang of bikers, basically. They're the same thing. They do, prostitution, drugs, guns, all the same shit. So you're dealing with the same kind of people. So naturally, you're going to do extractions and witness relocation, all kinds of stuff.
Program? Yeah. And by the way, Ellie, for those of your audience that may not know, as we've researched, you and I and others have now, the WITSEC program, the acronym stands for, real quick, U.S. Federal Protection Program. Again, to protect people like confidential informants. And depending on the threat level, again, they'll have always federal drivers, but some of them may be armed, particularly if it's a government official, for example, right? They'll have armed drivers, and then when the threat goes down, obviously, and then when, same with relocations, once the threat level goes down, again, Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan Chapman, Xander Canoodle, they will have a chance, most likely, to live independent and yet low-profile lives. We are designed not to see them, we the public anyway, and as you say, unless they decide to be released and no longer be part of the program, but we most likely will not see them. We won't see a digital trail, and these programs exist, and for good reason usually. And to not entertain this idea as a plausible possibility, at least for the IDAHO4, I think is just being very naive. And I didn't think this way at the beginning of the case or even the first year. But once you dig in, and you, as you say, Ellie, you said we should listen to all creators. I'm glad I listened to Birdie the first time around on that presentation, and then boom, once you look through a different lens, as Birdie says, and you look at this, I think it's really viable and it makes sense. Nothing else hardly really makes sense. But again, you're not going to hear this a lot.
Even Birdie himself has shied away from this narrative, this thought process, because
yes, but that's why I want to do the interview with Birdie, Ellie.
Yeah,
that's why I want to do the interview with Birdie in part, to get it back on track, right? To provide truth and transparency.
At least find out why
on your research.
Is it because you came in like gangbusters, or is it because he seriously doesn't believe it now? That's what you need to find out.
That's a great question. That's a great question, Ellie. I'd like to ask that to Birdie.
You're the only one that has any credibility in this whole subject, because you're taking facts and making something common sense out of it, and it just fits. That's the problem. If it fits, you can't acquit, right?
That's right.
Going against the OJ one, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. So if it does fit, hey, the man's right. Give him his credit. I think you'll find out he is.
That's right.
I think in the end, it's all going to come out in the wash. I really do believe we're going to find out.
I think so. Hopefully. I hope you're right, Ellie. I think you're right. Might be right. Well, I want, again, just a quick appeal.
A lot of creators have put a lot of work into this case. A lot of the creators have put a lot of work into this case, and I think we, at the same time, have to give them credit for, even if they believe something different than you, that they put this much effort into finding out what happened, protecting Brian Kohberger and stuff.
Yes.
And for those, guilters, they want to be all Captain Avengers and say he's guilty. That's fine. But a lot of people are doing so much work, and I just can't believe that no one's put this simple things together until you came along. So
and remember, Ellie, and you remember, I look back at J EMBREE's work at the beginning. Remember, just think about disinformation, just as possibility here, certain social media. That he's been at this case he's done hundreds of videos. He was on this case, as you know, well before you and I. Wow, Steve. So he's had a long time for people have to make their own decision. But if you go hard and fast, as I said earlier, as part of disinformation, hard and fast on your belief system, just understand, it's hard to get out of that. It's not impossible. That's why I'm trying to do videos, and you are, Ellie, and we're talking today to help people maybe have a different viewpoint, maybe be able to unwind some of the brainwashing perhaps that people are under. I was under it too the first year and a half, mostly from corporate media, certain social media personalities. But we can help them unwind that brainwash and look at this theory, and you make up your mind, folks, guys and gals, is it a possibility? Are they extracted? Did no atrocity take place? It sure, again, it's a staged crime scene, in my opinion, folks. We could go over and over it. They didn't treat it like a real crime scene, and there has to be only one reason, because it never happened. But they had the cameras. I like what Phoenix said, Ellie. Remember, even though she's got off at times this extraction operation theory and Birdie, right? As you said, they're going with other speculations and possible theories. I brought it up the other night on Once Upon a Crime Time with Tommy Jude, Phoenix was on. I thanked Phoenix and I said, you said in so many words that I liked it, Phoenix, where you said you take away the crime scene tape, you take away their badges, and it's almost like, and I was pretending I was addressing Tommy, and I said, it's like me addressing you, Tommy. I'll give you pizza and beer if you clean out my shit at the end of the semester. I said it in so many words. And I thought Phoenix was right on the money. And she knows she's right on the money, I believe. And, and she knows it's a staged crime scene, I believe. Her and Birdie, how can you not? They laid it out. We've laid it out. But if they want to speculate, go to different theories, by all means. And I just hope that maybe they'll give me a chance in the future, particularly Birdie, there on his platform. And if Phoenix wants to be on too, great. But if not, no worries. What's that?
I think as more facts come out, it's going to back you up more. We're saying the more facts
be great. Thank you for all this.
It's your theory, because you've already got people leaning your way. So,
thanks.
I don't know. Like I said, it's just a matter of what we're allowed to know, and they're being very tight-lipped and censoring very much this trial. And I've never seen a crime scene where the blood inside was so much that it dribbled through the house and out on the outside of the house. That must be one cheap.
Yeah, I can't believe I got into it. Yeah.
You know,
you use reason, logic, common sense. How could that much blood seep out of the foundation of the house?
Get all the wood and the fucking siding and then drip down the wall. Get out of Dodge. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, and by the way, Xander Canuto and Ethan Chapman were on a lower level, as you know, than Kaylee and Maddie, but they were still above Dylan and Bethany. So it's their blood, blood seeping out. Folks, it's a psyop. I believe it's pig's blood or paint, like Ellie's inferring, right? Absolutely. It's not real, folks. It's food. Pardon?
We'll never know now. They destroyed the friggin' house.
That's right. That was the goal. That part we'll never know, but we can reuse reason, logic, common sense.
All the fake evidence that they wouldn't show us has now been destroyed, and they can say, well, it was there. Trust us.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I don't trust you. I can't trust anything they say, because everything they say just sounds so stupid.
Yeah.
And I mean stupid.
And I think, Ellie, we could speculate on the motives behind the feds, like not coming out with all this truth again. I think it's all to do with largely university establishment, you know, the residents that live in Moscow, Idaho, the whole reputation, right? You know, how the town operates, and rightly so. They want the university controls a lot. You know, people are going to the university, these young, often beautiful, intelligent students trying to, you know, help, the parents are trying to help them out with their future. And the feds, law enforcement, university establishment, they do not want you to know what really happened, because it will affect, ultimately, I mean, most parents will not send their kids to school if they knew that these students were targeted and the real motives behind it. We don't know the real motives.
No.
As you know, we could speculate, as you said, maybe it was more the parents for all we know. But definitely, ultimately, the students ended up targets. The feds knew this, I believe, and I hope I'm making sense there. So
yeah, no, it's just like I said. That's where the facts lay, right? You can't really, we can't give definitive answers, but we can at least give a definitive theory. And
that's right.
A reasonably logistical, common sense theory, instead of whacked out space cadet multiple air theories of insane people who just grasping at straws, like catching air pockets out of the air, you know, like.
That's right.
So I mean,
that's exactly right. And by the way, Ellie, I think I also meant to say, Bernie said this. I got to give him credit. It's not me who first came up with this, but the feds naturally, they wanted to shield their drug investigations. So again, that's all part of parcel of putting this emotionally charged narrative, I believe, to make you think an atrocity happened. And it first stems with those feds, I believe, knew the students were targeted. They knew what they had to do. And they had the policies are in place for all this. We talked about the infrastructure's all in place. It's called Federal Witness Protection, folks, WITSEC. And once you know a lot of the details of the WITSEC program, the relocation aspect of it all, you can Google federal drivers, folks, for WITSEC, and you'll find all this out too, which I've done. And it's really quite interesting. You know, it's pretty fast. So.
Yep. No, it's all laid out. I mean, it's there. It's just a matter of people looking at it seriously.
Well, by the way, and on J EMBREE, Ellie, I love your background in the video, by the way. J EMBREE, he kind of, in a way, made fun of my head. He said I was bald, this bald head, or a box his bald head off or something. Meanwhile, he wears a beanie and apparently is afraid to show his hair, but like, I don't know. But anyway.
Well, like I said, like Tim, a lot of people feel Tim Pool's success came from always having that beanie on. And people can familiarize with it. So I think that's kind of what Pavarotini's doing too, is kind of like
it might be.
Using the beanie, sunglasses, kind of like a gig, right?
Maybe.
So I don't know. It just seems that way, and you know, like
you might be right.
I can't say. I don't know the guy, but I go by what I do see and what I don't see. And what I don't see is him showing his face. I show my face.
That's right. Well done. Exactly.
Face all the time. So why can't you show your face? Because you're going to give yourself away.
Maybe
if someone takes a screenshot of his face, but you know the funny thing is, there's a picture of him and I think his wife in his picture. Then he's not wearing sunglasses. But yeah, it's so friggin' small. Yeah. You can't see.
That's right.
Anything. So I don't know. I just think he should, to eliminate that kind of shifty, sketchy kind of.
Yeah.
Show us. Take your glasses off. Do an episode without your sunglasses, so you can put it into this myth that you might be a federal agent or something. But I think he's afraid to, because if people can get his face, they can put it through facial recognition and find out who he is.
Aha, I never thought of that. Right? That's exactly right. They sure can, right? Aha. Interesting.
There are computer programs who will match against any on-record pictures. If he wasn't a Fed of any sort or any form of law enforcement, he'll have his picture on file, and it'll be matched. Match him, right? So that's why I think he keeps his glasses on. If he's an employee of the. He might be a fucking biker for all I know. I don't know. But I'm just saying it's odd that he's afraid.
He says he says I believe he's supposed to be a construction contractor, you know, and I'm sure part of that probably is a real reality of his life, but doesn't answer everything else. You know,
they go to other jobs, right? Many other cops have agents.
Exactly.
And they do other stuff. Some of them even do YouTube videos, right?
That's right. Yep. And Ellie, I wanted to make it known just for me personally, J EMBREE, if you ever hear this, and you probably will, it comes on your feed. Again, you never said my channel name when it came on your feed. You admitted it came on your feed. It's big letters. Ellie kept me up with the title. J EMBREE, I don't hate you. I repeat, J EMBREE, I don't hate you, dude. Not even close. But again, I just wish you'd be more honest, in my opinion, J EMBREE, and you know, interview somebody again like myself or somebody else, especially with this extraction removal operation, connecting the dots. Let's have an open dialogue, and then you know we can see if J EMBREE is the real deal. Let's do an interview, right? And again, I don't hate J EMBREE. We can have a cold beer afterwards, after a fight, if we ever box for charity, or after the interview. We'll have a cold beer. I'll have one with you, J EMBREE. But dude, be a man. That's all I ask. Be a man. Man up. And let's do an interview together, and hopefully one day a charity boxing match. That's all I ask. That's all. That's it, you know.
And just so you know, I stuck up for you and told him that you had your right to feel any way you wanted about this case. But after what you said and how you said it, I don't feel so inclined to stick up for you anymore. I think you are pushing a narrative. Because you won't go on beyond your plateful. You have all these other plates around, but you only want people to center in on this plate. You won't show the other plates. Don't look here, you look here. So that's what makes everything look very sketchy and sus.
That's right.
And at some point, you will do an interview with somebody or clarify these things, even in a video. I mean, I would offer to do an interview with you, but I know you won't because I know you're afraid to do interviews, so I get it. I might bite, but look, you know, you're going to put these impossible limitations on people just to do a simple thing. And I don't mean that Jason can't get 2,500. I'm just saying, and then there's going to be this, and then it's going to be that. Like set your tone right off the bat, and you know, like I said, I get the feeling you're going to change things when he gets that 2,500 subscribers. Then it's going to be a whole different deal. So, like I said, there's so many reasons for people to think wrong about what you're presenting, and so many reasons not to believe what you have to say. So,
he'll do some good work, and he brags that he goes through the court docs, but even governments can manipulate court docs, and that doesn't explain the staged crime scene that we all see and can interpret circumstantial evidence, destroying the crime scene, etc. Right? Although they'll use a dollhouse, and so many other unanswered questions.
Yeah, but nobody does. He does some good editing anyway, at least. So.
Yeah, and you do amazing editing. So there you go. Thank you, Ellie, very much.
But anyway, I guess we should end this.
I love that. Yes, I like your backdrop. I'm sure the audience does too. We're both in touch with nature. You got beautiful plants.
Yeah, tomatoes this year. They're just like growing like crazy. Right. Yeah, I used different products. So I'm using an all-natural veg and bloom. There's no chemicals whatsoever in it. I don't like to use chemicals, right? The last few years we had bad yields, so I figured this year, man, they're growing like crazy. So,
yeah,
should do good this year. So anyway, so I hope you're having a good weekend, everybody. Jason, if you just want to say a last word.
Sure. Again, thank you very, very much, Ellie, for this opportunity to interview you, to bounce our ideas off one another again, and what's been going on in this case, and with Embry or Pavarotti, I forget how you say his name, but at times. But so thank you very, very much. And again, you guys can find me on YouTube at ESTEY'S Crime Maze. Eventually, I'll get to Rumble. As Ellie knows, I'm going to try to create a new Rumble account. But in the meantime, YouTube at ESTEY'S Crime Maze. If you enjoy my videos, as I always say, if you even think maybe I just have some value to share with humanity, or even if you don't, if you enjoy my videos, subscribe, hit the bell icon, hit the like, smash it, as Ellie puts sometimes in the editing, smashing it, and leave a comment, folks. I really sincerely appreciate it. I read your comments. We had over 1.4 thousand views, I believe, on an apology video to this Embry. Yes, I apologize, because again, I didn't think he brought up the WITSEC program. But there's questions that I have for Embry, and that's why I want to do an interview with him. And I think we all deserve to talk about different theories and not just be cemented on one pre-planned narrative like some of these social media personalities put out. Hint, hint, Embry, in my opinion, but at times. So that's what I got to say. Thank you for all your support, everybody, and over 300 subscribers so far. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it moving forward. And again, thank you for your amazing platform community out there, Ellie. You've done awesome work. Continue. Hope you continue moving forward. Let's stay positive. And maybe we could do this again if you want in the future.
Yep. We'll probably end up having to do it anyway. After his response to this. So
yes,
we'll see. Anyway, for now, so we will chat with you soon. I'll talk to you.
It's my birthday coming up. It's my birthday, Canada Day. If you want to do me a great birthday, folks, please subscribe perhaps to my channel. Just a thought. Thanks.
And you can buy him a coffee if he's got the Buy Me a Coffee link. So there you go.
That's right. Okay. Eventually I will, folks. I promise. I'll set that up.
Happy birthday, bald-headed boy.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
It's bald, but J EMBREE, it's brown, baby, and that's in. The sexy look bald is in, dude. Let's do an interview together, if you're man enough. Thanks.
Okay, have a good one.
Thanks.
Okay, so in ending this, I just want to address J EMBREE. I know we made fun of your name and stuff, and that kind of goes with what you did to him. if you don't want to interview him, just say you don't want to interview him. But you're putting stipulations. I just hope that hell you're not going to change them when he meets them, because he will meet them. He will get 2,500 subscribers. Trust me. And he will probably win that fight. I know. He won't want to walk away not winning. So, but you need to understand that you are creating the mystique around yourself. And I don't even mean the sunglasses. I just mean you are constantly pushing a narrative you know is dying rapidly. I mean, it's dying a horrible death. So you really need to look at the facts of the case and start looking at what's really possible. Because what you're saying it's making no sense anymore. You know, it might have made sense a year or two ago, or maybe 6 months ago, but with all that we've learned, it's not making sense now. So, you know, like I said, one creator to another and one editor to another. If you do your own editing, I wish you well. Have a great weekend. Everybody else, thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon.